All right, cool. All right, guys, welcome to Revit 60 or 60 Revit tips in 60 minutes. I kind of wanted to do this. It's kind of like what you might have seen it in AU. They have it all the time. Um, this is basically kind of tips that like the everyday user could use. If you're a beginner to Revit, I mean, you might be able to use these too, but these are kind of maybe tips and tricks you might not know. So kind of the goal of this is to basically, learn something you didn't know about Revit. So, while you're going through this, if you kind of want to write down how many, you didn't know, or if you didn't know, say you knew, all of them except the one, made my day, right? You learn something new in Revit that you can use, for your everyday usage. So if you have like a favorite one, or if you have like one that stood out to you, at the end we can kind of go through it, and then see which ones you guys liked. Um, and then I'm gonna say, if there's any questions, maybe we'll hold that to the end, just so I can go through all these pretty quick, or just so that I have enough time at the end to answer any questions. All right, so there's gonna be a lot of random. I'm gonna kind of bounce around a lot of places, but just again, write down any good ones that you see, and then we'll go through it. All right, let's get started. All right, so the first one here, you guys can see the Word document and the Revit screen, right? Yep, okay.
Yes.
All right, so the first tip, is you can change your save and sync reminder intervals. So if you go to the upper left-hand corner, there's a big R on 2019, 2020, it'll look a little different, but you basically want to go to options. Once you open the options, you have these two kind of boxes where you can change. So whenever you create a project and you don't save it, you can change the amount of times it reminds you. You can change it to like 15 minutes, or by default set to 30 minutes, or you can change it to no reminders if you don't want to see it. If you're syncing pretty often, you should be maybe like 15 minutes, just to remind yourself so you don't lose work. Same thing with the sync to central, you can change those. So you guys have probably saw that little pop-up box say, remember to sync or save. So you can change that here. All right, tip number one. Tip number two is in the same box, but if you go to user interface, here you have some tools, and basically these are on the ribbon. So you can see there's an architecture tab, structure tab, system tabs, massing, energy analysis. So if you don't really want to see those, yours is getting pretty full. Say you don't really want to see the systems tab, you can kind of uncheck those. And then if you hit OK, you can see the system tab goes away. So, if you don't need it, you don't want it, you can turn it off. But again, if you go to options, user interface, just uncheck the ones you want and don't want. So that's another tip. So you can see that it went away. If I hit OK, it comes back. There's the system tab. All right, that was tip number two. Tip number three is in the same user interface. If you can change the theme, kind of like Microsoft. Right now, it's set to light by default. You can change it to dark, so you can see that the ribbon changes to dark. If you kind of like that contrast of colors, you can change it to dark, or leave it at light. Kind of blends in with the view window. So I thought that was cool. Give you a little different perspective on the ribbon. All right, that was tip number three. Tip number four is you can change the background color. I know some people have done this already, but if you go back to the options and you go back to, it's not under user interface, actually under graphics. And in the graphics, you have this option here, which is background. By default, it's set to white, but say, you really miss AutoCAD and you want it to be black for whatever reason, you select the color, black, and just hit OK, and your background changes to black. So you can kind of change it to whatever you want. So if you don't really like the white, I've seen some people use like gray, whatever you prefer. You can kind of change that. Just one setting that I've seen people use before, and it's probably better on the eyes if you don't really like the white background. Okay, so that was changing the colors. The other one, tip number 5, is modifying the selection and pre-selection. So when you're in Revit, when you select something, by default, it'll kind of hover, and you can see that it changes to a color. So like this one, right, this chair, if I hover over it, it turns to a red because I set it to it. If I click on it, then it turns into like a full-blown selection, and now it's kind of highlighting it, the whole thing red. That's because I changed my options. So if you go back to the options, go to graphics, and that's what these are here. Selection and pre-selection. So by default, they're set to blue. So, you know, our glass is blue, and some other things might be blue, which is hard to see your selection and pre-selection. So you can change these to whatever color you want. So let's just say, you know, see how yellow looks. Yellow and red. So my selection and pre-selection are yellow and red. So if I hover over it, you can see it's a red. If I click on it, it turns yellow. So now you know what you're selecting. All right. Again, it's just more preference, just to see, you know, what you're actually selecting. Something that's a little harder to see because, you know, I'm selecting the curtain wall. It's just a line. So it just depends on what you actually select. So see, that one's a little easier to see. So you do have that option to change your pre-selection and your selection. Tip number 6, increase temporary text dimension size. So when you select something in Revit, it gives you these temporary dimensions. You know, sometimes it may be a little small, so you might, if you zoom in, it kind of just doesn't really help. But there's an option in the options bar under graphics is to change the text size. So if you like the text to be a little bit bigger for that temporary text size, you can change it here. You can make it smaller, you can make it bigger, whatever you prefer. You can see that it gets a lot bigger if I put it on 20. So if you're, you know, have to zoom in on your screen, you know, get a little closer to your screen, maybe that's an option to help you with reading that a little bit better. I'm going to reset mine to 12 because actually I'm okay with 12. You can see it got a little smaller. All right, that was tip number 6. Tip number 7, change default path for user files. So when you start a project, you know, if it's a local copy or, you know, it's a central model, you have to save a local copy. And if you go back to the options and you go down to this file locations, it has the default path for user files. So if you look at that on yours, it'll probably be in your users, your name, and your documents. So what could happen is a lot of the files, there's a lot of files in that if you opened a lot of projects. So what I like to do is I actually made a folder inside there called Revit files. So I go to documents, and if you go to your documents, you might see all the files you've ever opened that are local copies. I actually made a folder called Revit files, and I actually made different versions, so 17, 18, 19, 20, that kind of organizes my local copies. It's just kind of a user preference. I mean, instead of seeing all of them in one place, I can kind of see which files or which projects or which versions. It's just a little tip just to help clean up some things if you have a lot of things in your document folders. You can just browse and click the new area. All right. And then the next one, tip 8, change add default places. So in the same window, you have this, what's down here is called places. This places is actually what opens up when you go to insert a new family, right? So if I go to, let's just pay attention here. This is the Imperial Library. So if I go to insert, load family, this is the US Imperial, is going to pop up as my default. Say I actually go to, the detail library or the parts files or whatever pretty often, I can actually add that as a place, and it's going to open up for me every time. You can hit this little plus sign, and then you can click on these 3 little dots, and I can navigate to my folder. So I would go to ACAD, parts library, and say I wanted to access something in here like detail components or something, whatever I want, whichever folder. I just hit open, and now I can name this detail components. Spelled it right, but I can move it all the way up, and now since it's at the top, next time I go to load family, it's going to open up the detail components. That way you're not navigating every single time to the same folder over and over again. All right. I thought that was a pretty good one, just so that you don't have to continuously keep navigating to it. It also comes up in your folders at the bottom as a place for you to go to. All right. So that's pretty much everything about the options. Now I'm going to move on to the ribbon. So the ribbon, a lot of users kind of see the ribbon in this format, but you can make it bigger or smaller. Some of you have probably done it by accident, but you can hit this little button here. It's to the right of the last tab, and it actually makes them smaller. I know Amy kind of likes this look a little bit better. It's kind of user preference, but you can actually make them bigger or smaller. You can even double click on it to bring it back. But it's kind of just preferences. You can even make it really, really small if you wanted to. But that's kind of how you would bring it back if for whatever reason they collapsed on you. Okay. That was minimizing the ribbon. Tip number 10, if you hold control and you left click to move the ribbon. So say, for example, you use the modify tab a lot and you use the architecture tab a lot. Instead of, going all the way across, you can actually hold down shift and click on it, and then you can drag it over to where you want it to go. Control, sorry. Hold control and then you can drag. So now I have my architecture next to my modify. So I can, easily, pick on either one because they're right next to each other. So you can reorganize this however you want. I'm going to move it back, but you can, move all the custom ones around. So if you want to move modeling in front of takeoff and then, or detailing next to modeling, you have that ability. So just hold control and then just drag it over. Sound good? Another tip is about the ribbon is you can drag out specific groups. So you can see that in this tab here, I have my modify tab, and this right here would be a ribbon group. So this would be the modify. You can actually click on where it says modify and just drag it out, and dock it anywhere on your screen. This will help you if you're kind of using another tab, say wall, and instead of going to the tab, I just want to use these tools. I can just kind of use these pretty close to what I'm doing here. So like you align, you can click on it, do whatever you need to do. So that's pretty cool. And what you can do is just drag it back. It actually goes back to the same spot where you pulled it from. So you can't actually put it in another location. It'll just go to the same tab. But you can actually restructure these. So if you wanted to move these anywhere you wanted, you could do that as well within the same tab. Next one, tip number 12, is the quick access toolbar below the ribbon. So you can see mine is here. By default, if you're kind of haven't customized it yet, it'll be at the top. You don't get a lot of room at the top. So if you want, you can hit this little drop down and say show below the ribbon. That gives you more room to put as many tools as you want. And it kind of looks a little cleaner as well. So that was tip number 12. One of my favorite tools to use is if I open a lot of views, there's this close hidden windows. So what happens is I have all these windows open in the background. And if I click this button here, it closes all of them. And I'll show you all the windows. You can see I have multiple windows open. If you make the one you want to be the main screen, you can just use the close hidden windows button to close them all. Use that a lot. Pretty good tip. Docking properties palette in project browser. So when you open up Revit, you might have your project browser look like this. So it might be overlapping each other, right? And what I like to do is I like to kind of drag this one over, dock it on this side so that I have more room. Sometimes if you undock it, you kind of, it's kind of floating in space. But the tip here is instead of trying to get it in the right spot, you can just double click on where it says project browser and it goes right to the same spot that it was in. So for whatever reason, if you accidentally, drag it out or do whatever you did to it, you can just double click the top and it goes back to the same spot. So that one's pretty helpful. For whatever reason, if you turn these on and off, you can turn them back on. So say you accidentally close it. The easiest way to do it is to right click and go to browsers, project browser. Same thing with the properties palette. If you delete it or if you close it by accident, you can right click and go to properties. You can also use this button here on the modify tab and it turns it on and off. All right, tip number 16, keyboard shortcuts. So keyboard shortcuts are good if you're a big typer. So to find them, there's a couple places you can go to. The first one is options, and then where is it? Yeah, user interface, keyboard shortcuts. That's a long way. You can customize it here, and it'll pop up. But you can also go to, I believe it's view user interface keyboard shortcuts, or since you're a typer, you can just type KS on your screen and the keyboard shortcuts come up. So once you have the keyboard shortcuts, you can kind of look through them. These are all the commands within Revit. You see there's tons of commands, but you can search in here. So say move command. Search. There you go. So there's my move command. So right now it's MV. So I can customize it, which is tip number 17, to a new one. So let's say I can do MO. Oops. MO. And I can assign that to move. Now, whenever I type MO on my keyboard, it's going to activate the move command. Another tip is with Revit is it has to be 2 characters. So you can see all these have 2, RC, MV, MO. And you just have to make sure you're using the 2s. And then you can just remove whenever you don't want and just hit OK. Okay. That's customizing keyboard shortcuts. One of my favorite keyboard shortcuts is, if I open up two views, is WT and then ZA. Try to share that a lot with everybody. So if you have, you're looking at a floor plan and elevation, you hit WT, window tiles in, you hit ZA, it zooms all. So you can kind of see the whole view on the split screen. So the more views you have open, so if I open a whole bunch more, go to west elevation, hit WT, ZA, window tiles them all. So you just want to make sure you have the ones you want to open, the ones you want to view open so that they window tile. Okay, so back to level 1, and then we'll close all these. All right, tip number 19 is scope box. So when creating floor plans or any other views, you can use a scope box. So if you go to the view tab at the top, go to the scope box. What a scope box does, it actually kind of, crops everything out for you. You can kind of do the same thing on all different views. So again, if you go to scope box, you can click on, your first point, and you click on your second point. And, I just want to focus in on this area. Say this is going to be my main elevation or whatever it is, main whole building or whatever it is. I can create the scope box, and I can assign this view to look at just this scope box. So I made the scope box, and then on the properties, you can see there says none. I'm going to change it to the one I made, scope box 1, and everything gets cropped that's not in the scope box. So it's kind of quick, convenient. It ensures that, say floor plan 1, floor plan 2, it has the same kind of layout, and everything is in the view that you want. Just a view, everything that's in the scope box is what you want to show. You can set it to none, and then turn it back off. Use scope boxes a lot for floor plans. I know some people don't like them, but it's kind of user preference. All right, create similar. So with create similar, I have this chair here, and I put the chair in, and say, this could be mat clips, it could be kind of whatever, a component, whatever you want to be placed in. But right, this example is a chair. And I want to create the same chair, but I don't want to go to architecture, component, look for that component, since I already have one placed. So what you could do is you can click on that object, use this button here, create similar, or if you hover over, you can see the keyboard shortcut for it's CS. Hit create similar, and it's going to automatically start creating another one. And it's going to continue creating it however many times you place it. So I kind of use that a lot for whatever you need, whether it's mullions or class or whatever it is. If you click on something, create similar, and then it creates the same thing that you've selected. Another one is when you're placing or creating something, whether it's, for example, this is a chair, or maybe mat clips, or other generic models. If you hit the space bar before you place it, it rotates it. So you can hit the space bar and it'll rotate it 90 degrees. Another tip that I didn't write on there is if you have a specific angle that you wanted it to rotate to, say 45 degrees, you have just like a reference, you can hover over that reference and it'll rotate to that specific angle. So this rotated 45 degrees. It's rotating relative to the plane or to the whatever line you drew. So if you take it off, it rotates, at the basically 0, 90, 180, 270. All right. Use that a lot sometimes. You create similar spacebar to rotate. Tip 22, select previous. So say for example, I selected, a couple of these, like 3 of these, and for whatever reason I deselected. If instead of selecting all of these, maybe you selected a whole bunch of things. Instead of selecting them all again, you can just right click and then say select previous. So now you have those options that you've selected again. So again, I do that a lot. Sometimes with units, when I make a unit, I put glass in there, and I change the glass type, and then it deselects. I can right click, select previous, and I can change some other properties in it. Okay. Linework. So Linework, I'm going to show you this example here. I don't know if it's something I should be showing you, but I'll show you anyway. So I'm going to show you an example. Let me just change this real quick. Display. So if I have this, actually let me go to navigation. So I have this wall right here, right? And I copy it up. I'm just going to show you as an example. Selected levels, level 2. It's yelling at me because they're overlapping. I'm just going to move it up 2 feet. So I have these 2 walls on top of each other. I don't know how you would use this, but there's an option to override the line work. So you can see that there's a solid line in here. Let me actually change my options back to white. That's how we print the shop drawings. So what you can do, say you didn't want this line for whatever reason, you can make one wall, or you have the option to kind of override line weights. So what I would do is I would go to manage object styles. No, sorry. Line styles. And then these are all the line types I can use. If I hit new, I'm going to make one that says no lines. And it's going to be white. Again, I don't know where you would use this, but what I can do is I can go to this button here. It's called line work. You can override the line styles for the selected line in the active view only. So if I click line work, select my no line, which is white, and I can click on that line, and you see the line goes away. I don't know where you would use that. I just saw it online. I didn't know about it, so I thought I'd share. But that's a good one. For whatever reason you need to use it. Tip 24, temporary view properties. I showed this last week, or not last week, whenever I did the view templates. You have the option to use a temporary view properties. So basically everything in this view is driven by this view template. So if you want to change something just temporarily, you can go to this down here, temporary view properties enabled, and say for example I wanted to, let's actually go to the floor plan. It's easier to see. So I can do the same thing, temporary view properties enable, because right now I want to change this to find view. You can see it's locked. I can go to enable temporary view properties, and now I have the option to change it, so I can change it to the find view. You can see that it shows a lot more detail with the find view as opposed to the course view. I can only do this because I have the temporary enable properties shown, because I don't want to override the view template. So I use that one a lot. Selection toggle on and off. So when you are using Revit and you say you have a linked model or something that imported mass or something, sometimes it kind of highlights, and it gets annoying sometimes when you highlight it, and it kind of freaks you out a little bit. I don't know why, but if you click on something and you pin it, what you could do instead of having it highlight, you can come down here, down on the bottom right, and it says selected pinned elements. So if you uncheck that, you can see now if I hover over it, it doesn't highlight. So you can see this one highlights, but this one doesn't. Say you had an architectural model in here, every time you hovered over it, it would highlight. If you hit this selected pinned elements, it doesn't let you select it anymore. So that's kind of a trick to get over that, the highlighting effect. All right, let's see how much time we got. 3. Okay, so let me go a little quicker. Selection, toggle on and off, I just covered. Selection filter. So with the selection filter, see I select multiple things. You can see I'm selecting a lot of stuff and it's all yellow. Floors, mat clips, scope box. I can select this up here, do a filter, and now I have ways to kind of filter out certain things. So say I just wanted to select the walls, I can do check none, just check the walls. And now you can see just these walls are highlighted. I use that a lot. Save selection. So say for example, I'm going to come over here and I want to select all these mat clips. So I can select all the mat clips. I can do the same thing I just did. Windows select, filter. They're just generic models. Hit OK. So now that that was a generic model. Now they're all selected. What you can do is you can save the selection. So up here, there's a save selection. And you can name it something like mat clips. Or something, whatever you want. So in case you need to come back to it. So say you need to reselect those for whatever reason, you can go to your manage and you can hit load selection. And you can say load mat clips on second floor. You click on them, they all select again. So this is great for, whatever you want to kind of come back to later on and, select them again instead of actually, individually clicking on them. Lots of times there's lots of elements in the way, so you kind of have to turn them on and off. You can use that kind of at your disposal. That's saving it. I just showed you loading it, and you can edit it. So if I do that again, if I load this, and then you can hit edit, and then this will allow you to pick, mat clips on the second floor, and then you could edit. Load. Well, typically it would have a little box here. You can add and remove which ones you want. Maybe I can hit edit. There we go. Hit the button. You can hit add and remove, and you can hit remove. You can click on these. You can see they turn gray, and then you can say finish. And now if you load it in, and then these are not selected anymore. Okay. Tip 30, halfway there. I think I'm on pace. So set current view as home. So if you're in your 3D view, you can use the home button and it'll take you to the default view, which is the southeast. If you want to change that, so if I want to set current view as home, so say for example, I actually wanted like this view to be my home. For whatever reason, the main entry is on this side. I can like right click on the home and I can say set current view as home. So if I set that, and now if I rotate it to whatever view and then I hit the home button again, it's going to take me to that side. So it's kind of again, what your project looks like. You can change that default option for your home. You can orientate to a view. So again, if you do the same button, you right click on the little home, You can orient to a view. So if you want to orient it to a specific floor plan, elevation, or a specific 3D view, let's go to like this elevation. You can see that this is my elevation view. It kind of crops everything out that you don't want, that it's looking at. You can just set it, change it to, orientate it to floor plan, and then it shows you probably cropped it out. Let's go box. So that you can play around with that. I use that sometimes to focus in on one thing or the other. You can also do it to a specific direction or a specific orientate to it. Save to project as image. So let me move that one down. For some reason I should have put that one lower. Oh no, I skipped it. Save orientation and lock view. Okay. So let me change this back to display. So save orientation and lock view. Okay. So when you have your 3D view, you have the ability to orbit. Let's say you didn't want to orbit and you wanted to kind of put this in on a view. What you can do down here, there's this little house with a lock, and you can save orientation and lock view. So you can still zoom out, but you can't rotate it. It won't let you rotate it. This will allow you to kind of put this on a view, and it kind of keeps this image. So in case you rotate it, it doesn't move its orientation, its rotation. Okay, that was 32. 33 is save project image. So say you had an image here, like say you're looking at like the main entry and you wanted to make that an image. What you can do is right click on the view, save to project as image. And what's going to happen is it's going to give you kind of a little rendering. So I can say like the test. Like you can just say the current window. You can, it looks best when you zoom to 100% and you have your quality at like 300. Hit OK. It's going to do its thing. And what happens is it actually creates a little rendering and it shows you kind of your building. So it looks kind of rendered, looks pretty nice. And this is an image. So you can actually put this in your project and use this in your project if you need to. I thought that was pretty nice. It looks actually pretty good. So that was a new one. Add to view. Okay. So with this one, if you go to your sheets, I have sheet 101. We're typically used to dragging the view onto the sheet. There's another option. If you right click and you can hit this add view. So this add view, it allows you to click on whatever you want to add to the sheet. I want to add this one, and then I can add another view, number 2. So I can do that. Instead of, if you have lots of details, lots of sheet views, you have to scroll up and drag it over. I thought that was pretty convenient to just, right-click, add to view. Move between sheets. So say, for example, I placed this on a sheet. Instead of just deleting it, because I want it to actually go on 102, instead of deleting it and moving it to 102, what you could do is you can go to 102, expand it, and then you can just drag it onto this page. So that's kind of another tip that I found, that instead of deleting and kind of re-dragging it from the top, you can just move it between sheets down here, which is pretty convenient. Navigating through open windows. So when you want to tab through windows, you can come up here and kind of pick on these. But you can also use the control tab, and it'll cycle through your open windows. You can also go back by using Control Shift Tab, and it'll go the other way. So I can use either or to kind of cycle through the different tab windows if you're kind of more of a keyboard person. All right, tip 37. Let's see if I go to detail. One of the options that Revit has is a repeating detail component. So if I go to annotate, if you hit the drop down, there's a repeating detail component option. And I'm not sure exactly how to use this, but it's just an option. So what you can do is you can make, different options. So call this fastener. And then I just assigned a 07AX side view to it, and I made it a fixed distance of 2 inches. And then what I can do is I can just place this, and you can see that it's going to create a repeating detail of all these fasteners spaced out at 2 inches. You can come in here and edit it to make it, whatever you need to. 3 inches, and you can see that it updates. So if there's, a lot of fasteners or a lot of one specific detail that you need to make based on, probably a good example would be like sunshade brackets spaced out, a couple inches apart. You can do that. So I thought that was neat. You can hold Control to unselect. So say for example, I had a detail component. Should put plywood here, and I can use my mirror command. And when I use my mirror command, I can have the option by default to check by copy. So if I mirror something around the plane, it's going to copy it by default. The tip is if you do a mirror, and before you select your points, you hold down little Control, and you can see that it unchecks. So instead of coming up here and unchecking it, you can just hold down Control. You can see it toggles it on and off. And now I can do that. So whatever you want to do, you can uncheck it there or just hold Control. Constrain and multiple. So if I want to copy something, I hit copy, these options come up, constrain and multiple. So I have the option to constrain it. So what that means is I can't go at some weird angle. I can only go like straight up or straight to the left and right. So if I do that, you can see I can only go up to the left to right and down. Multiple allows me to place a whole bunch of them. So I can, go down, and keep clicking on however many I want. So that these two options allow you to do that. And if you hit Control or Shift, and constrains it for you. All right. So I'm showing you guys just basic examples. You guys can use them how you think would be necessary. Multiple alignment. So let me go back to this. So here's my elevation. I have horizontals that need to be aligned. What I can do instead of aligning one by one, if I use the align command, there's this multiple alignment. I can just click, 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 click. So it's more of like a clicking because they're aligning to the same one that was my initial one. So that's the difference between multiple alignment and if I do just the regular align command. So if I do regular align, it doesn't let me. I have to kind of do the same thing. It doesn't let me keep clicking. I have to like re-reference it. All right. Copy on rotate. So let me go back to my detail. If I have my component again, if I click on it and I want to rotate it, it gives me the option to copy. So if I just want to rotate it, I can do that, or I can use the copy and it makes another copy. So I have 2 of them now. So that's a good tip. finding referencing views. So for whatever reason, if you have a detail view and you want to know where it's located, you can just right click in the view and you can say find referencing views, and it's going to show you everywhere where it's located. So I've only called it out on this elevation, so it's going to take me right to it, and this is where it's located. There's no number because I didn't put it on the sheet. The camera. So with the camera, it's more of a perspective view. So say I wanted to look at a perspective view of this, I could go to view, and I can go to the little drop down and use the camera, and I can basically pick where I want it to look and create a little camera view. This is where my extents would be, and now you can see I have a perspective view. I'm looking at that elevation. You can drag this up and down to see the rest of the view. Now you have your perspective view. And you can change kind of the settings and all that stuff. You can show the camera. So if I go back to the view, I don't actually see the camera here because it goes away. So what you can do is, it's going to go under 3D view 1. Yeah, right here. So it's going to go in your 3D views. So if you go back to your floor plan, you right click on the view, and you say show camera, it's going to show you where that was. And you kind of move it where you need to. So it gives you a different view of it. Now I'm looking at it a different view. Walkthroughs. Walkthroughs, I'm not sure if a lot of people use walkthroughs, but they're a good way to get like a little animation going. So walkthrough allows you to create like a little video. So I can click my starting point. I can click, you know, where I want to basically walk through the model. I can just hit finish walkthrough. And then what you want to do is edit it to where you're looking at your objects. So I can click there, and I can go back frame, just update where it needs to look. So I'm going to do this real quick just to show you what it looks like. This is good for like presentations or animations or anything. And then I'm going to done editing, and then let's see if I can play this walkthrough. I need a little walkthrough. So that now it has a little category here, and then I can just say play this walkthrough. And now you can see that it's showing me as I'm actually walking, say this out of the huge building that I'm looking at. It'll actually show me, you know, up close and personal, and just kind of like show you a little video of what it looks like. I thought that was cool. Something if you want to play around with for your models. Plan regions. We got 9 minutes, so I can go through these real quick. Plan regions. If you have a floor plan, let's go to level 1, and say I have this. I have these two windows here. So in my floor plan, I don't actually see them because they're higher than my cut view. So if I go to plan views and then I go to plan region, I can create a little region where I'm defining the cut plane to be higher. Right here. So this is actually 7 feet, and then you can hit the check mark, and now you see they show up. So the plans just in this box here is looking a little bit higher. Warnings. So warnings, if you go to manage and you go to this warnings box, it shows you everything that there's an issue. So you wouldn't know this, but there's actually 2 walls here, and it shows you. It's telling you that there's an error. So they're saying there's duplicate walls, they're overlapping. So you can click on it, show, it'll take you to it, and you can kind of fix the error. So you can see that these are actually 2 walls on top of each other. So that's a good one, and now you can see since I got rid of the warning, it goes away. Global parameters. So global parameters are good. So if I click on a glass here, typically we would click inside here to change the material. You can actually create a global parameter by clicking this button, and you can say, you know, this is going to be, you know, vision. So now what will happen is, if I go to manage global parameters, I can set it globally, all of them to be vision 1. So if I go to vision 1, hit OK, hit OK, and now this is going to update. So what I can do now is, for all of them, instead of, you know, going and selecting every single material every time, click on it, click on this one, assign the global parameter to vision 1, and they all change. The ones I've selected change. Or I thought they did. Found it. Found it. All right. Show hidden lines. Let me go here. Show hidden lines. Temporary view is still on. So say you have this wall on the front, and you want to see the hidden lines behind it. You go to View, Show Hidden Lines. You can click on your wall, and then now you can see that this line shows up. You can remove hidden lines by doing the same thing. Now this line goes away. Adding sheets to the view list. So by default, when you create sheets, new sheet, there's all these placeholder sheets. So say, for example, you wanted to add one to this. What you could do is go to the schedule WW sheet list. You can add, insert a row, insert data row, go to whatever you need to add. So say it's like an elevation, you know, 2.9 or whatever it is, and you kind of make this, actually sorted it, and you can kind of make it here, and then the next time you add a sheet, it'll come up here by default. So now you have that sheet there. Instead of, you know, making a new sheet, changing all this, this is a way to add it. Interference check. So interference check, what it does, we don't use it too often, but it looks for any interferences. So let me just copy this. So if you go to collaborate, interference check, run your interference check, you can check between a couple different categories: generic models, walls, current panels, whatever's in your project. If I do walls to walls, hit OK, you can see that it tells me that there's some interferences on this wall and this wall. Match properties, another popular one we use pretty often. If you type MA on your keyboard, it gives you the match option properties. And you kind of match different units or different glass or whatever you need to. It's also located here, match type properties. Project browser search. If you need to search something, you can right click on the top, search, and then you say it's something specific, 3D. It'll actually go to the location that it has 3D. It'll open up everything within your project browser. New cock joint size. So I get this question asked a lot. If you need to make a cock joint within the project, the first thing you do is make a profile of it. So you can see that there's a WW cock joint. These are default sizes. Let's say I needed 5/8. I would duplicate this, call it 5/8, and then I would edit this to be 5/8 width. And then I would actually come up here to the mullions, and I'd have to make a mullion. So I duplicate this, call it 5/8, and then change the profile to 5/8. Create view from view, create view template. You got 3 minutes, create view template from view. So say for example, you had a site plan. What you can do is, since there's no view template, you can right click and then say create view template from this view. call it site plan. And now it's a view template you can use in your project. Go to view. So wait, create site plan, duplicate. Okay, yeah. So say for example, I deleted my site plan, and I need to make it again. You can go to view, plan views, floor plan, and in this option, I can uncheck this one, click level 1, and then now I can make this my site plan. Just apply the view template that I made. Go to view, so if on elevations or sections, if you click on the head, right click, go to view, it goes to it instead of double clicking. Split segment, so if I make a section here, what I can do is I can hit the split segment, I can click somewhere to segment it, and I can offset where it's going to be. So if I wanted to move this farther, for whatever reason, you can see now it only shows this half. You have that ability, so if you need, if there's something out in front, instead of hiding it, you can just split it. And the last one, if you hold shift and you click on the Revit symbol, it opens up another Revit session. All right, that's 60 seconds. Hopefully that was something you've learned. I know it was a lot. I'm tired, but hopefully you learned something and it wasn't boring.
Yeah, I learned quite a few things. Thanks, Gabe.
Yep. All right.
I'm definitely going to change the selection colors now.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thanks, Gabe.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Hey, Gabe, quick question. I typed it in. I don't think you saw. So if I change it in Revit, will it stay in this Revit even if I close this session? Will it stay like in each of the Revits if I change it there?
Let's try it.
In options.
So you're like all the little properties I said, like view selection and all that.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
I'm assuming it should stay, kind of like if it works like archive. So I don't have to set it every time I'm opening.
Yeah, I'm thinking it'll stay. Like the dark theme stayed.
Okay, so you think the ribbon one on the bottom stayed, the colors stayed. All right, cool. All right, thank you.
All right,
it was the one I paid attention to. This part. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.